the personal development space is really good at getting you to think you need to add more. You need to consume more to feel satisfied and to feel good about yourself. Welcome back to a brand new episode of The Art of E-Commerce. Here we've got my co-host Tony. Antonio, dude, I don't think they know your full name because I always call you Tony.
I mean, passport name? No, just Antonio.
Antonio, literally
gonna expose the whole ordeal.
Yeah, it's your boy Jaime, and we've got a very special episode today. We're talking about the whole topic of consumption versus creation, and why you should probably stop reading. So let's get right into it, man. I think it's gonna be a very important topic because I think chances are, if you are in the personal development space, you're reading an absurd amount of books. Is that good? Is that bad? Here's our take. So let's go right into it.
Absolutely. And I mean, just to highlight the irony right from the get-go, right? So, I mean, towards the end of last year, I'd say I really got into reading myself. And last year, I'd say I finished probably around about 30 books, right? Which was a good first start from someone who originally I would read quite a bit, but not for books specifically. And this year I set quite an audacious task of reaching over 100, right?
110, right?
110 is the goal on 57 right now.
57 books, and it's been less than
just
8
over
months.
Yeah, just over halfway done with the year, right? So yeah, it's ironic to be speaking about this, but I do think there's power in it, and there's power in the message, right? Because one of my favorite quotes that I actually read this year in a book is, knowledge isn't power, right? And there is that famous quote, knowledge is power. But no, knowledge is just potential power. And it's the application of that knowledge that actually transforms itself into power, right? So again, we were having a talk earlier one of these days, and it's just if you're consuming all of this and you're doing all this reading and all this watching, but you're not actually implementing, you're not actually doing anything, are you really moving forward? Are you really taking steps in your life to go in the direction you want to go?
Yeah, it's such an interesting topic, right? Because again, it's also ironic. I'm literally sitting left to me is my bookshelf, and by part of also I had this era, this phase of my life where I was reading a book a week, right? And the reason why we say this is because, it adds a bit of context to the fact that we've read the book. I mean, I didn't quite get to the 100 plus mark per year, but we've read the books. We've done all that, and I feel it's in the personal, you want to be careful, right? It's important that you're careful, because while I do believe that at the start it's important to read. It's important to read because it can create an impactful shift in the way you view the world. It can open your eyes to the possibilities. It can get you thinking different, right? While at the start it can be important, it can be quite impactful, it'll get to a point where a lot of the books that you read won't actually move you forward. And the reason why that is because the personal development space is really good at getting you to think you need to add more. You need to consume more to feel satisfied and to feel good about yourself. And it's it almost tricks you into, it basically ties the fact that you're reading to a really good feeling, right? A feeling of accomplishment. And it's easy to lie to yourself and tell yourself, oh, I'm accomplishing stuff, I'm achieving stuff because I'm reading. Yet you're not actually executing. You're not actually doing the stuff that will genuinely cause a big shift and change in your life.
Oh, for sure. And in the end of the day, the same adding on to what you said, these books, especially in the personal development space, a lot of them are 350 pages long, and you could really summarize what they're telling you there in 3 or 4 pages. And it's just repackaging and repurposing and adding a bunch of examples into the same message. And again, I see great value in it. I think it's very important, and it's helped change the direction of my life for sure. But there does come a point where if you're caught up in all this reading, and if you're caught up in being in this mental space where you see this as progress and you see this as you moving forward, whereas in reality, outside of reading, you're doing very little and you're executing very little on what you're learning, what's the point? You know, are you really moving forward?
100%. And I think what you need to watch out for, I think the main problem comes, and this is like what breaks the camel's back, is the fact that is when you start putting I need to read this many pages a day, or I need to hit my book goal over the actual execution, right? So let's just say you're starting an agency for e-commerce, or let's just say you're further down the journey and you're starting to work on e-com brands and launching these and whatever you're doing, right? And instead of focusing on that, which is going to be the biggest shift in your life, can create the biggest impact, right? Both financially, but you can also, both, help, the impact that you can have on people, right? Putting food on the table of your team members and their families. Like, you're literally shortcutting your success because you've been programmed so hard by a lot of these personal development books and a lot of people who are preaching this concept that you have to read and that leaders are readers. Now, let me, and we talked about this, right? Early on today. Let me state, right? I do believe reading is net positive. I believe it's an incredible habit, and you're better off reading than just being on your phone. But this concept that a lot of people throw around, because I do think that they have a personal hidden agenda, that all these CEOs and all this stuff, they almost make it seem like they got to where they are by reading. And if you actually do a bit more digging into it, they read, obviously, right? They read. They prefer reading than just going on their phone mindlessly, right? And they're very selective about the things that they read, and they don't just read for the sake of reading. What they spend their vast majority of their time is on the execution, on executing, right? And so just do the actual due diligence and dig more into the facts, right? And really get to understand what the top people are doing. And I can assure you, a lot of the main thing that they're doing is execution, because sure, people, different people have different modes of, consuming information, but nothing will ever trump execution. Like the knowledge that you can gain from executing and going to the market, testing the concepts with the market, the type of progress that you can make when you do that, it cannot be compared with any other medium. Not listening to this podcast, not reading a book, not watching a YouTube video.
Absolutely, but again, at the same time, the balance to that, right? Like the counter argument to that would be, if you're going into the market and you're trialing your offer and you're doing all these things with no guidance, and you're just doing it off the cuff and just like trying your best and falling on your face to get back up again, there's a way to streamline that process,
for sure,
right?
For sure, I do agree.
And so yeah, that's where the importance of guidance, of mentorship, of learning, of exposure really comes in, right?
Yeah. I think it's like a seesaw. It's like when you start out, maybe you're doing 90% consumption at first, like in the first few months, 90% consumption. You have a mentor that literally walks you every single step of the way, right? A really good mentor. You're reading all these books and you're consuming, right? You're filling yourself with really good, valuable input. And then 10% you're executing on this input and getting feedback, right? But you have to really make sure that you start tilting that balance as soon as you possibly can, right? Why? Because it's very comfortable, right? You can get very comfortable by, on that structure of consuming, right? Because if it feels very comfortable, like you get a dopamine hit, right? Because you're finishing all these books, like you're consuming all this information, your mentor's telling you like, oh, you should do this. And yes, you are getting more information, but you're just in a comfort state. And so it's really important to watch yourself. What percentage of consumption are you doing, and what percentage of execution are you doing? And are you actively tilting the balance every single day so that you're executing more than you're consuming? At the stage of my journey right now, I'm executing 90% of the time and I'm consuming 10% of the time, if that, right? And I think I've been tilting the balance over the past few months as well, right? Like it's a constant tilt. And maybe in a few months, it'll be like 70% execution and 30% consumption, right? Because maybe I'm entering a complete different market, or I'm entering something that I'm not like an expert at. But I think like you need to be careful with how the balance is looking, because it's very, very hard when you get comfortable in the structure that you have with like, the percentage that you're consuming every single day.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that the idea of the seesaw and really being able to visualize that that concept of, what you spend time doing in one area, you're gonna be essentially taking away from the other, right? And balancing that and tilting it towards execution more and more each day is powerful. And again, something we speak a lot about in these episodes is the fact that each to their own, and each will have their own path and their own views and their own way to get to their desired outcome, right? But when it comes to like the actual media that you like consuming, right? Like be it podcasts, be it books, be it YouTube videos, courses, one-on-ones, all these things, what would you say has helped you the most in terms of just like ingesting knowledge?
Going straight to the source, just like investing into myself. Now I do believe that you have to do your due diligence, which may require you to see the free content that someone is posting. I'm not one to be swayed by external stuff. Like I don't really give a shit what car you're driving, what house you're renting, and what watch you have on your wrist. Like you could have earned that through the courses you're selling, maybe, right? I care about like, is the knowledge you're imparting on your free content, right? Is it good? Like is it tangible? Like are you helping people on the free stuff? Because then your paid content is going to be like nothing I've ever seen, right? It's going to be on a complete different level. So I do the due diligence with the free content. Obviously, do my due diligence on are people getting results? How does this person really make their money? And then once I've made that decision, which is usually very quick, then I go straight to the source. Like and obviously I'm in I do see that I'm in a different kind of stage of the journey than most people. I don't like, I do have a capital that I can invest, right? And I know a lot of people do have also capital that they can invest, but I also know people that don't, right? In which case there's YouTube videos that can also help you. But I don't like wasting time. Like I don't like doing the trial and error. I don't like doing the guesswork. I like someone that can be there, right? And can guide me through the things that they've learned, because they might have invested a lot of time themselves, a lot of money themselves to learn all this stuff, and that can just access for much less of the investment that they've made. So understand that if you just go straight to the source, like you can literally shortcut your way to success.
What about, because you mentioned there as well, like some people do have the capital, others just straight up don't, right? And again, at different stages, different things are going to be more useful to you, right?
Yeah.
For someone starting out, and even just looking at you, you personally, right? What types of things really drew you into wanting to, not only be an entrepreneur, but specifically work with the internet, specifically work in this new age kind of thing, and decide that was what was there for you?
Yeah. The main thing was the fact that, I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, right? And just understanding the landscape, like reading where the world is going. Like I'm not romantic about the internet. I'm not romantic about anything really. Like, obviously I do love creating content. For example, I love I do love it, right? But I'm not romantic about it. So if the next thing would, I would be able to adapt, right? So it's about seeing trends and patterns, and not quick fads. Like I don't buy into fads, right? The internet was, it's obviously a well-established thing. And these online businesses are starting to be very well established, and they've got a really strong track record. But it's like understanding that this is the vehicle right now, and also you don't need much. Like the barrier to entry isn't super high, right? And there's massive advantages to that. There's also maybe a few disadvantages to where maybe a lot of people can enter it. But again, as we spoke in one of the previous podcasts, like as long as you generally care and you commit to mastery, that shouldn't be a problem. So the fact that you can start it literally like today, right, with very little capital, and it's opened the doors to so many people, right? And this entrepreneurship thing is a possibility for everyone. It's crazy to think about.
Definitely is open to everyone.
Like for example, in your case, right? Like you made that decision. You hadn't really thought of being an entrepreneur before, right? Like you knew you wanted to work for yourself, but had you considered that idea of entrepreneurship?
Exactly. No, for me, especially growing up, like I knew I didn't want to do what I was told. I knew I didn't want to go down the typical path. I knew I didn't want to work the 9 to 5. I knew I didn't want to come back home from a long day at the office where, you know, I've seen what it's like. I've seen I don't like it. And then just sit in front of the TV and wait out like 2 or 3 hours so I can sleep and start again the next day.
Yeah.
Like for me, that's just like, that was the epitome of what I didn't want to do. And, you know, it was just the case of finding the right vehicle to express myself in the right time in my life as well. Because, you know, a lot of the time you're going to be seeing something and, you know, if you're not ready, you're not ready, you know, and that's just where you are in life right now. And it's what it takes, you know, like there's no point in reading, for example, in terms of consumption, there's no point in reading a beast of a book that others would refer to as a Bible if you're still at your step 1, you know, your chapter 1. It's just, you're just not going to be able to resonate with it at the 100%. Level that it can be afforded to, you know? So it's really understanding where you're at and the immediate next steps you need to take to get to where you want to go.
Yeah. A concept that I really like, that I think describes that perfectly, is the just in time and just in case information. Like a lot of people decide to consume just in case information, where it's, as you said, like it's not the right time to consume that information, yet they consume that information, or they make that decision to, you know, I don't know, spend time on something, right? Consuming something that is not really going to move the needle forward, because it's just, you know, it's not necessary right now, right? And making that distinction as well of being aware of, you know, where you're currently at, and not take, you know, for example, if someone is like the type of suggestions that I take, or the type of tips or advice that I take, are not from people that are at a beginning stage, right? Like it makes sense, but people need to be aware of that. The fact that you know, it's for different stages of the journey, you need different things. And so understanding what is your just-in-time information, what is the precise mentorship, what is the precise book, video that you should be watching at that instant, right? To make the next big breakthrough in your life, is such an incredibly important skill to have nowadays, because we live in a world where there's an information overload, you know?
Absolutely. It's so easy to be distracted nowadays, because you log on to Facebook, you have your newsfeed. You log on to Instagram, everything's there just searching for attention. Even YouTube, you go in, recommendations everywhere. And of course, there's ways to, you know, ad blockers and put those things, like those stimuli, out of your life. But you are bombarded, like it or not, you know, and being able to know exactly what it is that will help you get to where you want to go and will help you take the next steps is probably one of the most important skills of the 21st century, to be honest.
Yeah. It's literally being able to kind of say, this doesn't help me. Like the ability to pick what you should focus on is so incredibly rare nowadays. It's one of the things that will set people apart, you know, the ability to focus and to get into a state of deep work, but also to, you know, be selective about the inputs that you let in. And I think that's one of the things that I want people to take away from the conversation, which is just be very selective with the things you put in, you know, the input that you have, whether it's, you know, food, but also the books you read, right? If it's just in case and it's not really going to serve you, and it's just you're just going to store it in your head, or it's not like, you know, the best type of knowledge or energy that you should be like consuming right now, then don't do it. You know, be selective about the things that you let into your mind and the type of ideas that you consume, because they can either program you in a very negative manner, or they can just make you waste a lot of time. Like, for example, this idea that you need to be constantly reading. Yeah, maybe at a certain stage, but it's not black and white. Like it's very gray. Like you need to, as we talked about, like that seesaw concept is so incredibly important.
100%. And I think that concept of being selective with what you consume and what you have in your life applies across the board, right? So to food, to what you're consuming in terms of content, to the people you have in your life, to the places you go, to the things you spend your free time doing. All these things add up to the habits you partake in, which end up constituting who you are in the end of the day.
100%, man. But yeah, that's a really good place to wrap things up.
Absolutely.
Hopefully you guys enjoyed the episode. If you did and you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and smash the like button. We'd really appreciate it. And helps out with the algorithm. And also don't forget to subscribe and hit the little bell icon if you don't want to miss any of the upcoming episodes. We've got a lot of episodes coming up, a lot of really juicy topics, a lot of important topics. So go ahead and do that. And if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcast, wherever you're listening, go ahead and sub to the podcast. So that is that for this episode. Thank you, Tony. And we'll see you in the next one. Peace.